So, welcome, Bryan. I'm just so excited and delighted to have you on the podcast today. Really, where my whole podcast journey started was with you many years ago. And for our listeners, Bryan Orr is the co-owner of Kalos Services Incorporated, an Orlando area HVAC contracting business, as well as an audio and podcaster, as you can see if you're looking at the video, and host of the HVAC School podcast. And not only that, but you are now the author of a best-selling book, Unconformed. I'm so excited to talk to you today about your book and your work and your life. So welcome, Bryan.
Thank you so much for having me, Pam. It's a real honor.
So actually, what's very cool today is that it's also a special day in our podcast history at CareerSource Central Florida. We felt like it was time to kind of change up where we were going with our podcast and give it a little punch. And so we are officially launching our new podcast name, Boldline. And I'm honored that you are joining me as we embark on this new podcast journey. And we put a line in the sand to be bold in our workforce future and our future here at CareerSource Central Florida. Boldline is about being bold, which means be brilliant at the basics of workforce development, optimizing the innovations that we have in delivering services of workforce to our constituents, leading the people who do the work, because everything we do is service to our, I gotta start that again. Doug, I lost my train, so you can edit. Anyway.
No worries.
Okay. So bold line is about being bold, resilient, innovative, and having bold conversations connecting each of us. I like to think of Boldline as the bold lines that connect us, being brilliant, optimizing innovation, leading people, and developing resilience for our organization. So Bryan, you're no stranger to being bold. So tell me a little bit, by the way, before I ask you about your work and life, I want to ask you if you happen to be a fan of May the 4th.
Oh, may the 4th be with you. Yeah,
Yes.
for sure. And honestly, as a kid, I was a huge Star Wars nerd, as I think a lot of us were. And yes. So now it means a lot more to my kids. They're the ones who remind me now. But
So I too am a Star Wars nerd. I'm a Star Wars nerd. I'm a Star Trek nerd. And I love that we have that in common. And it's interesting to now see it all come to life in our kids. And I have grandkids. So grandkids are starting to get into Star Wars. And so lots of life lessons in the Star Wars.
There are,
storyline. So, but anyway, so Bryan, tell me a little bit about Kalos and how you have grown up literally in the Kalos family.
Yeah, so I actually started out at the age of 14 working as an electrical apprentice with my uncle, who worked as an electrical apprentice with my dad when he was 14. So we have this history of kind of starting to get our hands dirty at that age. And we kind of went our separate ways, my dad, my uncle, and I, and did our own things in the trades. And I started out working for a very large contractor in Central Florida. And then in 2005, we just decided, let's make a go of it. Let's all three join back up and start a business. Mm-hmm. And that was Kalos. And we started off very small, primarily doing residential work. And now the vast majority of our work is actually commercial, a lot of it in the grocery store space. And since 2005, we've gone from the three of us to now about 270 of us.
Wow.
And we do a wide range of different things. A lot of people still think of us as an HVAC contractor, but we're a general contractor, electrical, controls, plumbing, and HVAC, as well as refrigeration, especially market refrigeration. So we've explored a lot of different things. We've learned a lot of different things, and we've gained a lot of new core competencies, which is actually a lot of what I like to talk about in the book and other places.
Yes, absolutely. Does Kalos stand for anything? Is it a family name or?
Well, our family name is actually Orr. It's a very simple 3-letter name, which is very nice as a kid because it's really easy to spell. So that comes in handy. In fact, people are usually shocked when you say Orr. They're like, how do you spell that? And you say 3 letters and they're waiting for more. So so I don't know. We never really wanted to name it after ourselves because I guess we always had a sense that it was going to be something bigger, that we wanted our team to be able to believe in, that was more than just us. And so when we were trying to choose the name, we were sitting at the kitchen table. I can remember it like it was yesterday, my dad and I, and he had a Greek dictionary there. He was studying Koine Greek, and he opened it up, and we just started kind of thumbing through it just as a just as a whim. And we found this word kalos, which means integrity, goodness, wholeness. And essentially it does mean, but it also came to mean for us, doing the right thing, just being willing to do the right thing in business, towards your employees, your clients, and having that be our central ethos, that drives our business. And while we're not always perfect at it, it is something that we hold in front of us as our goal every day.
Wow, that is incredibly inspiring. I love that story. So since 2005, growing to well over 200 employees, that's incredibly impressive. I imagine along the way, there have been great and positive and amazing things that have happened with the business. What are some of those? And then conversely, what are some of the challenges in growing a family business like this into, a staple in the Orlando, Lake County, and Sumter County, and across the region that we serve here in Orlando, a business such as this? Obviously, HVAC is very important to us in Florida, but to grow and sustain a business like Kalos, presents incredible opportunities, but also challenges. Can you talk about those a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So a couple things that I've seen repeated over and over and over again, which is on the positive side, is that clients are really willing to work with you so long as you're very honest and transparent about where you stand. Time and time again, like, new markets have opened up to us where we really weren't the expert in this market. One of the first early ones was the pool heating market in the short-term vacation rental industry down in sort of the Disney corridor, where there's all these short-term vacation rental houses. Nowadays, everybody knows about things like Verbo and all that. But back in the day, it was really kind of a niche market. And so there was a few big players. And a lot of those companies gave us a chance. And I was very transparent, like, hey, look, I don't really do that much of this, but I'm certified to do it, and I'm interested in learning. And we did, and it became a huge part of our business early on. And then that just kept happening over and over. One of the things that has always been core to how I thought about business is I don't know if you're familiar with Jim Collins' book Good to Great. I think a lot of people
I think
are.
I have it on my shelf right
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. And one of the fundamental ideas is making sure that you have the right people on the bus. I mean, that's a huge part of our business. And what we've done time and time again is bring people in who we really believe in and who believe in us, maybe don't have everything they need in order to succeed right this second, but then allowing the business to grow around those people. And we've done that over and over as we've grown into these different parts of our business. Like I mentioned, plumbing, electrical, controls, refrigeration. These are all things that came about that way, where we were very honest with our clients and we started small, and then it just continued to scale as our skills and competencies scaled.
Wow, I love that. And, it reminds me when you and I met, it was during a management leadership program, Business Quest. And this evolution of business was for both of us, really front and center. For me, who have been in the workforce development industry for 30 years of my life, really wanted to, at that time, Uberize, to create a different way of delivering services that was much more customer centric, and also had great performance and kept maybe the governmental piece in the background. And so it sounds like Kalos has also had opportunities along the way to develop other businesses, and then, keeping your Kalos values in front of you at all times. So that's really, really a cool way to grow a business. How about challenges? I can bet I know the biggest one.
I mean, there's a lot of them. I mean, one of the ones that is maybe less apparent is myself. Like, leading a business, when you come from being very good at doing a particular set of things, and then realizing that in order to scale, in order to empower your team, you have to really change what your skill sets are. And you have to be willing to embrace the fact that the things that you used to see as a win early in business, those quick wins, you close a deal, or you're able to troubleshoot a complex problem. That's me. I love the puzzle of the trade. You get less and less of that because now other people are getting those wins. And so you actually have to you have to get those wins by supporting your team and really enjoying seeing them get that. And that takes a little bit of learning because the thing that maybe drove you early on has to shift a little bit, but it's very rewarding, that part of it, but it is a challenge. And then the other is obviously the people side. I mean, you hear that from everybody. It's always the people side. But, we've really been very blessed. And I think it's because we've always been a training organization. We've always focused on teaching. We really have always been able to find the right people kind of at the moment that we need them. Sometimes it feels like a panic, like everything's going to fall apart, but then all of a sudden, we end up getting that right person or developing them internally, which is actually what we do the majority of the time. But we see that time and time again, that when we invest in our people, they actually do step up in those critical moments when we feel like everything's about to fall apart if somebody doesn't step up.
Yes, I do think, and particularly now with work and labor shortages being what they are, that investment in people is really, really critical. And I know that this is an incredible passion for you. Podcasting, also a passion. You and I met and you were just beginning this kind of podcasting hobby, right? You had just kind of started out and you've now evolved that into a full-fledged aspect of your business, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I ever since I was a kid, I just loved audio. I was homeschooled and my parents weren't real keen on television. So because of that, a lot of my consumption of media was through like radio dramas and just, I learned how to read with Sing, Spell, Read, and Write, which was tapes, that you would play.
Oh,
and,
yeah, I remember.
So I always just liked the audio medium, and I would make my own little news stories and audio dramas. I think a lot of kids from a past generation actually grew up doing that. I was just sort of a holdover. And so when I had a chance to do that, when I finally got enough margin in my life that I needed another outlet, that's what I did. And I did it as a hobby. I mean, I worked for, NPR and Radiotopia and WNYC and a lot of things you've heard about, This American Life and Radiolab and those sorts of, as an independent kind of correspondent locally. And that was just a lot of fun. And I learned a lot through that. I learned that I wasn't, there's some things that you do and you realize, I'm not as good as a lot of other people at this probably, but I still loved it.
I think you're really good.
Well, thank you.
I really do. I think you're really good. I listen to some of your podcasts, even your HVAC training podcasts. And I think you have an amazing way of coming across both like very familiar, but also in, providing information that's important. So yeah, you learned well. You learned well.
Yeah, and I was able then to, and it just sort of happened. It's like a lot of things that I do. I always joke that I'm just sort of throwing things against the wall and just seeing what sticks. And finally, what stuck was teaching what I already taught, which was HVAC, electrical fundamentals, that sort of thing. And started putting some of that up on a small little podcast called HVAC School, and the response was just overwhelmingly strong. And so then I just decided, okay, I'm gonna put aside everything else. I'm just gonna lean into this. It maybe isn't as artistic as some of the things I was once doing, but I get a lot of joy out of being able to help people learn and do better at their jobs, which is very rewarding.
Excellent. So also along the journey, since I've known you, you've become an author. Tell us a little bit about Unconformed and how that came about. And it's also very appropriate for sort of the context in which we know each other, which is workforce development. So tell us about Unconformed.
Yeah. So one of the things that's important to this story is that I had a very unique childhood. I already mentioned I was homeschooled K through 12 in a time when that was not common. I mean, nowadays when somebody says they're homeschooled, it's like, well, who isn't? It's like since COVID, it was sort of like that became much more normal.
Yes.
But another really unique thing about my life is I have 10 children with my wife Leilani, and we home educate all of our kids, and so we're very connected into that community as well. But we've always sort of been outliers because people will come up to us and they'll always ask some version of, well, how do you do it? You have a business, you have a podcast, you have 10 kids, you homeschool. How do you do all these things? And the answer is never really that satisfying to anybody because it's not formulaic. It really isn't a formula. It's like, well, you find things that are worth doing to you, and then you really pursue those things in all the directions that they go. And so Unconformed is really it's a manifesto about my experience and what I've seen both as a home educator, educating both in the, I taught an apprenticeship program for a year, teaching within the context of Kalos Services, a lot of different things that I've done, hiring people, seeing the struggles that people face, and then ultimately just needing to be able to answer that question that people ask, which is, how does this work? Like, how do I develop skills? How do I gain confidence? And so I just kind of go through my story. A lot of it is about my grandfather, who was one of the people who really invested in me. The timing has a lot to do with my grandfather's health. His health is starting to decline a little bit, and I really wanted to get this book done while he was still around to read it, and that's been really a joy to be able to share that with him. But it really is. It's one of several books that are in my head that I wanted to get out. It's a short read. It's a simple read, but it really just speaks to what it takes, from my perspective, to gain skills and to feel really confident, both in the workforce, but also really in anything that you do.
Yeah, I've read it, and I am so struck by the questions you're answering are the questions I hear from so many businesses, which is, why don't people pursue jobs that are in the trades or working, directly with something that gives them meaning and value? Why don't more people go into trades like electrician, like HVAC or plumbing? Because these jobs, and I know this, are extraordinarily well paid. And to your point, Bryan, it's not just, the residential trades person. It's actually, management and commercialization and all of the incredible growth that's happening here in Central Florida, as well as all over the country and really all over the world. Why don't people, what is your thought as you were writing the book? Because I know you address this question and really also kind of provide testimony to parents and to people about why they might want not necessarily to immediately pursue traditional college.
Yeah, and first thing I always like to say is I do not talk down to any sort of traditional educational paradigm ever.
Right.
I think it's awesome what people when people commit to get a college degree and put the work in and all that. I think that's beautiful. So I never down talk that. I guess what I encourage is take that same level of rigor and apply it to other things if that is how you are inclined. And I certainly was one of those people. I could have gone to college. It's not that I would have been unsuccessful in college. It's just it wasn't what I wanted. And so instead, apply that same level of rigor and intentionality to developing other types of skills that have, in many cases, the same, in some cases, even better payoffs. It's what people see often is they see people who are stuck. So in Unconformed, I talk a lot about being stuck. And they was like, well, I don't want to be stuck digging ditches my whole life. It's like, well, the only way you get stuck digging ditches your whole life is if you accept that paradigm, if that is all you ever want to do. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with digging a ditch, right? That's actually a beautiful skill to have, and it isn't just as obvious as it may seem. Even the most simple types of tactile work, that's sort of, I think of it more as the hands-on vocations, because it isn't even just trades. There's lots of hands-on vocations. And I think a lot of people think they're going to get stuck. The other thing that you see a lot is this peer pressure. And the peer pressure comes from parents, grandparents, people of influence, who don't want to see their kids or the young people in their lives become a failure. And a lot of this is just storytelling, right? Maybe it comes from past generations where maybe the workforce was different. But the reality is that your son or daughter, were they to become a welder or a plumber, they would be the furthest thing from being a loser or something like that. It's those skills are so highly valuable, and there's no reason for them to be stuck in that. If they do that for 5 years and they decide they want to get into training, they want to get into project management, they want to get into coordination, they want to get into marketing, they want to get into leadership, they want to get into sales, all of those opportunities are available to them. And you see that time and time again. The only way that they would get stuck in that space is if they have an apathetic mindset towards it, where they that feeling of being stuck is a self-fulfilling prophecy. And you see that over and over again in people's lives. And that's what I speak to, is like, you're not stuck going into something that is more tactile, more hands-on, and also really try not to be that force of peer pressure that tells people that they're not good enough, or it isn't good enough if they decide to do something a little bit more tactile or a little bit more hands-on.
Yeah, I think it's very inspiring. And I think what it does is it raises up all of these kinds of jobs to the same level as jobs that you can potentially get if you go to college and complete some degree. The reality is we know that just over 50% of young people go on to college traditionally. And then not even 50% of those who start in ninth grade actually, I'm not ninth grade. Let me say that again. So 50%, a little over 50% of individuals who graduate go on to college. That's it. And of those who go on to college, less than 50% actually graduate from college after 4 years. And so they often fall out. And to your point about getting stuck, they might get stuck somewhere between high school and college. Sinus. Sorry about that.
I know, I have it too.
Let
Yeah.
me try that again. Because I'm talking. So, Doug, I'll have to start that line over again here.
No problem.
Water. I do have water. Hold on 1 sec.
Yeah, take your time. No worries.
So I did the same thing, but I have my little mute button over. That way you can't tell when I'm coughing and hacking.
Oh my gosh. It's been like a week and a half of coughing and hacking.
Yeah, I know.
And it's sinus. I've been tested like every which way, but Sunday it's nothing but that. But
yeah.
All right, let me try that again. So really what you do is raise up jobs like trade jobs, because of those individuals who graduate from high school, just over 50% actually go to college, traditional college, and less than 50% of those who start college actually graduate from college in 4 years. And so often individuals are stuck between, I got a high school diploma, but I got some college. And in fact, at CareerSource Central Florida, 63% of who we see are people in that space. They didn't finish college. They have a high school diploma. They need a skill. They need some ability to be able to make good money for their families, and yet they're stuck in understanding and having all these, I think, stereotypes around jobs like welders and like HVAC and like construction, all the different jobs that go in to construction, but then also manufacturing. Manufacturing is growing so tremendously, and so many of the jobs are technician level jobs that make really excellent money. But again, there's just ideas and peer pressure or parent pressure, to your point about where they should go. So how has the reception to the book been, Bryan?
It's been really positive. Yeah. I mean, and it's been a really enjoyable cross section of people. In fact, a lot of the people who have said some of the nicest things about the book are traditionally college educated. Ryan Gorman, who's somebody who's kind of become a friend through this journey. He was the former CEO of Caldwell Banker, and very highly educated,
Yes,
college educated guy, Wharton Business School guy, and he's really come alongside and wrote the intro to the book, and a lot of others who have said really nice things. So and that to me is very important, because like it's super important to me that we're not poo-pooing anything. We're saying what I'm really promoting is you can feel passionate about whatever it is, whatever path you decide to choose, and that path can change over time. In fact, I advocate for that. It's totally okay if you do something like, I don't know, take on a hobby as a podcaster, because eventually that's likely going to parlay into something else that may be a little bit more, maybe able to monetize or may make a little more sense for you. But I see so many people with fears to try things, fears to pursue their interests, or maybe they always think of things as being hobbies, and that's not good enough, right? Well, it's just a hobby, right? It's like, well, there's often directions you can take those things. So I think a lot of people have been freed up. The people I've heard from most are parents, though. Parents who feel so, people get afraid for their kids. It's natural, right? We all do.
Mm-hmm.
We know fear is not we know it's not a good emotion, but we still feel it because we love them and we want them to do well and we want them to be happy. And so I think a lot of parents I know they have, because they've told me it takes the pressure off. You can still be an intentional, thoughtful, deliberate, diligent parent without pointing your kids to a single path forward. And often your kids are different too. I mean, I see that in my 10 kids. Several of them are really well suited for the college path, and others aren't interested in it at all. And some of them who I think are really well suited are also not interested. And that's also okay. Like that's fine. And that's part of what I think the book has helped people with in a small way.
So of your family, have any of your kids decided to pursue the same work that you're doing and work with Kalos?
Yeah, so far I'm batting 1,000, but my first two are young men, and yeah, they're both working in the business. But I've been really intentional, and this is something that I think at times actually drives my wife crazy because I am so vague. It's like I don't tell them what they should do. I just talk to them about possibilities, and they both work in different parts of the business. Neither of them report directly to me or any family members. They're working in sort of the controls and refrigeration parts of our business. And but who knows? I mean, I have conversations with them. One of them thinks he might want to get into real estate someday. The other one maybe thinks possibly even engineering because he's only 19. So there's endless possibilities, and I just try to stay open to that. But yeah, they're in the business. A couple of my daughters work part-time as well, just learning customer service skills and those sorts of things. So.
That is amazing. So what's next for you, Bryan? Podcast, leading,
yeah,
HVAC, school.
Yeah,
What's
two
next?
things. Yeah, two big things. One is that as I've had to lead the business, I've recognized that there is kind of a hole. I really like doing things, and I like being with people when they're doing things. And so one of the things that I'm working on now is creating more processes and systems so that I don't have to be in so many virtual meetings all the time or that sort of thing, and actually spending more time being present with people. That doesn't scale, but I think it's part of what I need to do. It's part of who I am. So restructuring some of my leadership so I can do more of that and actually be physically present with people. The other thing is really passionate about giving back within the trades. So at some point in the next several years, we are going to open a destination training center for people all over the country and world to come and actually get a chance to experience the teaching that we provide. I didn't talk much about HVAC school, but that's really grown, and we have a very significant audience both on YouTube and the podcast, and we write tech tips, and we do a lot of writing for the industry and even codes and that sort of thing. We kind of help with a lot of that consulting. So it's really become we already have a small event that we do once a year, but we really want to be able to scale that so that more people can come and learn. And then also being able to pour into some more of the kind of disadvantaged communities that could utilize some of those skills that could give them that ability to make that next step up in their lives. So those are all things I'm excited about in sort of the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, that is really exciting. Well, how can people find out more about Unconformed and you and the HVAC school and Kalos?
Yeah, so the easiest place to find out all of those things is probably just to go to the hvacrschool.com website. If you go up top, it actually does have a link to the book and it has my bio and all that stuff. You can also contact me through the site very easily. kalosflorida.com is the actual website for my business if you want to find out more about that. But yeah, there's like I said, the book is there. You can also just go to Amazon and type in Unconformed and it's there as well.
I know.
So
that's how I got it. I got it straight on Amazon. So, well, Bryan, I am so thankful, first of all, that you and I met each other during Business Quest back probably close to 8 years ago now, because I have always learned a lot from you, and I am incredibly humbled to be your friend, but also in awe of all the amazing things that you've done, and really hold you up as a model of leader and father and husband. So I appreciate your friendship, and I appreciate what you've done for CareerSource Central Florida on our board of directors. Thank you so much for being on the podcast with me this morning. And so excited that our podcast is now Boldline and has been focused on sharing great insight and connecting people to what matters, just like we are at CareerSource Central Florida. So thank you so much, Bryan, for being with me this morning.
Thank you so much, Pam.